What up, what up, what up? It's your boy JB coming back at you live and direct, man. Thanks again for tuning into the channel. Y'all know the routine. As soon as you come into the building, mash that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on that bell for notifications. And boy, Draymond Green has lit a fuse under Stephen A. Smith. Draymond Green has lit a fuse under Stephen A. Smith. And I just want to start this video off, man, by if y'all hadn't seen Shaq's podcast with Draymond. Draymond is definitely the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. How is Draymond so lovable on podcasts, but people hate him so much on the basketball court? And I think he did a good job of letting everybody know in sales, one thing we get taught, there's your identity, and then there's your role. And Draymond really did a good job, man, of separating the two on Shaq's podcast, talking about how he is outside of the basketball court and how he is on the basketball court. And he and Shaq had a hell of a podcast, by the way. Y'all need to go over there to Shaq's podcast, man, and check it out. But during the podcast, Draymond was asked about his suspension after the whole Jokic situation and the Rudy Gobert situation. But the Jokic situation really started this narrative that Draymond needs help. And Draymond was like, man, he thought that was unfair. But one name he brought up was Stephen A. Smith. And he said that Stephen A. Smith was probably the one who was one way behind the scenes when he was texting him, and another way when Stephen A. Smith got on the show, and that thing got under Stephen A. Smith's skin because Draymond basically called Stephen A. out for being fake. And Stephen A. has addressed it on the Stephen A. Smith show on YouTube. But I think Stephen A. Smith, man, he's growing his YouTube channel. He puts out some good content. All of us are out here trying to get to a certain level. But Stephen A. is having a hard time understanding how this sphere works. And if y'all know Draymond talks about old media versus new media. Draymond is the guy who's leading this new media with podcasts and all this kind of stuff. And Stephen A. got mad because Stephen A. said, how did I find this out on Shaq's podcast? And I think Stephen A. is mad that Shaq didn't say anything because he and Shaq are fraternity brothers. He and Shaq are cool. And he let Draymond go on. And I think he's mad about Draymond because he feels like he's defended Draymond. But Stephen A. got to understand, when you come over here to these YouTube streets and these Spotify streets and this quote-unquote new media like Draymond says, man, it ain't like how you do in traditional media. So Stephen A. got to be one way on ESPN because of certain things he can't say, according to him, on these FCC broadbands. But, man, I think Stephen A. is wrong on this one. I think if you look at the totality of Shaq's podcast, Draymond is giving you his experience, which is what we do on these channels. Okay, I don't have to give you a call before I talk about you. I'm giving you my perspective on this through my filter. And I think Stephen A. is struggling with how these guys are coming at him in this YouTube prism, in this Spotify prism, on this podcast prism, because he's got to be one way on First Take and on NBA Countdown, and then he tries to come and be this guy that's trying to show you how black he is on the YouTube channels. And again, I'm a fan of Stephen A., but I think this is a battle he's got to be more prepared for, because at the end of the day, you got to be authentic regardless. And if ESPN doesn't let Stephen A. respond to these things on First Take, responding to it on your Stephen A. Smith show is not going to have the same impact. And Stephen A. went at Draymond on First Take, and again, that was good. But his Stephen A. Smith show, he turns him more into a brother. He doesn't have to be as polished. And Stephen A. is telling people he's tired of y'all coming at him. But honestly, I don't think Stephen A. is gonna stop people from coming at him. And I think Draymond just did the first shots fired. We got to remember, Steven Jackson just did it. There's a lot of people coming at Stephen A. on these podcasts talking about how fake he is. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know Stephen A. Smith personally. But I think he's got to learn to adjust, man. Hell, I got people in my comment section that make stuff about me. But you just realize this is my opinion channel. This is not something that, you know, people got to agree with me on. This is an opinion channel, just like Stephen A. Smith is. And honestly, I think Draymond is entitled to his opinion. I think Shaq was right with how he handled it. Just like on Club Shay Shay when Shannon Sharp let Cat Williams talk. It ain't my job to stop you. It's my job to let you talk, and then you let the people decide. But I think Draymond, and to be honest, guys, I think Stephen A. Smith's going to have to decide Is he gonna stay with ESPN, or is he gonna come over here to these YouTube streets? Because he got to decide. He done got hit with the Donald Trump thing. He done got hit with the Draymond thing now. He done got hit with the Steven Jackson thing now. He's getting hit over here trying to respond to ESPN. And again, his channel is growing. It's a great channel, great production. I'm pretty sure he has a great team. But he's going to have to realize, where does he want to compete? Because if he wants to compete in these YouTube streets, he's going to know that the shot's going to come fired unexpectedly. Nobody has to give you professional courtesy, because we really not professionals over here. We over here on this YouTube channel where everybody gets their opinion. But I think Draymond and that Shaq podcast really exposed Stephen A. Smith, and Draymond came across as a likable guy. And Stephen A. Smith is coming off as a reactive guy trying to prove how black he is and how tough he is. That's just my opinion. And I don't think Stephen A. needs to do that. I think Stephen A. needs to either go on Draymond's podcast or go on or have Draymond come on his podcast, or go on Shaq's podcast to respond. That's how you do it. Man, keep that entertainment up. Don't have it so personal. But I think Draymond got one up on you, man, because I watched both of them. And Draymond came across as a likable guy when he's not on the court. And that's dangerous. And Draymond is doing the WNBA Finals on Inside the NBA. And the guy's actually pretty good at what he does. So this new media versus old media thing ain't going nowhere. I think Stephen A. got to decide what platform does he want to be on. Because at the end of the day, I think he's more uncomfortable in the YouTube realm than what he is at ESPN. And that's what's the difference between him and Pat McAfee. And I think Stephen A. is trying to get to that Club Shay Shay level. And I think he's got to stop being so sensitive to it. Enjoy the fact that it's not about being right. It's about keeping the discussion going. We all trying to get clicks, man. We all trying to get advertisers. I hope that this Draymond and Stephen A. Smith thing can become an ongoing thing. You get down in my playlist, I said Shannon Sharp and Shaq was a good beef to have. But let's not get into this point of, of trying to, talk about who's the blackest and who's the realest. No, let's keep the discussions going, because it allows people like me to have some content to put out there. Y'all get down in the comment section, man. Let me know what you think. Is Jeff crazy, or is Jeff on to something? You team Draymond, or you team Stephen A? If you hadn't already, man, mash that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn that bell for notifications, and until next time, we gon' holler.